Right now today, how many biological males are housed in female prisons under BOP?
Senator, I don't have those numbers in front of me today.
Why don't
but
you?
We could look at them and get back to you.
Why don't you?
I just don't have them top of
Did
mind.
you know you were going to be asked that today?
No, Senator.
Oh, you didn't. Have you been asked that before?
On the record, Senator?
Yes.
I don't recall.
You were asked a year ago in writing, and you failed to answer it in writing. You knew damn well you're going to be asked it today, but you don't want to answer it. Senator Lee asked, why don't you report the numbers? You don't report the numbers because you don't want people to know the numbers. So the fact that you sit there and say, I don't know, he said 1,300. Is that number in the ballpark?
Okay, you just saw that clip. And if that didn't get your blood boiling at least a little bit, I don't know what will. What you just watched is Senator Ted Cruz doing exactly what a senator is supposed to do. Holding a government official accountable. No fluff, no theater, just direct questions that every American taxpayer deserves answers to. And what did he get back? Evasion. Deflection. I don't have those numbers in front of me. I'm not familiar with that. I will get back to you. We're talking about the Bureau of Prisons, a federal agency responsible for the safety of thousands of people, and the director could not answer basic questions about her own institution. That is not accidental incompetence. That is a choice. Before we watch the full video, if you believe government officials should be held accountable and that women in federal prisons deserve protection, hit subscribe right now because that is exactly what this channel is about. Drop a comment telling me your first reaction to that clip. And share this because more people need to see it. Now, let's watch the full thing, and then we'll talk.
Ms. Peters, one of President Biden's first acts after taking office was to issue Executive Order 14006, mandating that contracts with privately owned detention facilities not be renewed. The order is intended, quote, to decrease incarceration levels by reducing profit-based incentives to incarcerate by phasing out the federal government's reliance on privately operated criminal detention facilities. This order has created many unintended consequences, including the closing of the Willacy County Regional Detention Facility in Raymondville, Texas. The decision has had tremendous negative consequences with little to no obvious upside, forcing inmates to travel hundreds of miles round trip for court appearances, impacting the accessibility of legal counsel, and making family visits significantly more difficult. It has also caused administration issues for the prison system and harmed the local economy by eliminating these jobs. Literally every stakeholder that has a role to play in these cases is opposed to this Biden policy. That includes the defense bar, the federal public defender, the U.S. attorney, even the federal bench. All have publicly asked for this policy to be rescinded. Unfortunately, as with the open borders under Joe Biden, the Biden administration doesn't give a damn about how their woke policies actually affect South Texas or the lives of regular people. Ms. Peters, how has Executive Order 14006 impacted the Bureau of Prisons' ability to house inmates, and has it been a negative impact or a positive impact?
Thank you, Senator. So we were able to come into compliance with the executive order the end of last November and bring in those individuals from those facilities that were closed, and we were able to safely absorb them into our current population.
Okay, that you didn't answer my question. How has it impacted the BOP, and has it been positive or negative?
Senator, I don't know that I can put it in a positive or negative category. What I can
So
say
is the defense bar and the U.S. attorney and the federal bench, are they all wrong?
I'm not familiar with their opinions and their reasons for opposing.
Okay, unfortunately, you're illustrating that the Biden administration doesn't care about South Texas if you don't even know the impact it's having on all the stakeholders. All right, let's shift to the topic Senator Lee was just asking you about, because I have to say I found your answers to him thoroughly unacceptable. The 2022 Transgender Offender Manual, issued by the Bureau of Prison through your predecessors, reverted back to the Obama administration's initial designation and housing programming assignments. Notably, biological sex at birth is no longer the controlling determinant. Right now today, how many biological males are housed in female prisons under BOP?
Senator, I don't have those numbers in front of me today.
Why don't
but
you?
We could look at them and get back to you.
Why don't you?
I just don't have them top of mind.
Did you know you were going to be asked that today?
No, Senator.
Oh, you didn't. Have you been asked that before?
On the record, Senator?
Yes.
I don't recall.
You were asked a year ago in writing, and you failed to answer it in writing. You knew damn well you're going to be asked it today, but you don't want to answer it. Senator Lee asked, why don't you report the numbers? You don't report the numbers because you don't want people to know the numbers. So the fact that you sit there and say, I don't know, he said 1,300. Is that number in the ballpark?
1,300 as it relates to which category, Senator?
Biological males housed in female prisons.
No, that would be a much larger number.
Which is a larger number?
So the number of individuals who even identify as transgender at the Federal Bureau of Prisons is around 1,700. And the number of individuals that are housed in institutions not conforming with their biological sex are very low.
Very low. Are we talking 100? Are we talking 10?
We will look at the numbers. We're talking less than 10.
So your testimony here, I just want to understand, your testimony here today is there are fewer than 10 biological males, human beings that were born male, who are housed in female prisons. Is that your testimony?
That is my understanding, and I will confirm that and get back to you.
Okay. Of the 1,700 prisoners you referenced, how many of them are convicted sex offenders?
I do not know the answer to that, Senator.
Are you aware that Great Britain's numbers, according to a January 2022 report, is the proportion of male-born transgender offenders who are sex offenders in the UK prison system is roughly 60%, significantly higher than the 18% of the general population. Are those numbers consistent with the American numbers?
I'm not familiar with Great Britain's numbers.
So let me ask you this. How many female inmates have been sexually assaulted by biological males who BOP has housed in female prisons?
Senator, I would have to look into that and get back to you.
Do you have an obligation to protect those female prisoners?
Absolutely.
And so have you examined how many women have been sexually assaulted by biological males that BOP has placed in the prison with those women?
I have not, Senator, but I will tell you that safety and security and the placement of every individual in our custody is top of mind and the most important.
So if it's top of mind, why haven't you examined how many have been sexually assaulted? This is an obvious question. If you put a man with male genitals, with a male body in a female prison who's a convicted sex offender, it's not rocket science that there's a real risk those women are going to be victims of sexual assault. How is it possible that you haven't even asked the question, how many women are getting sexually assaulted because of the policies of the Biden administration?
Senator, I assure you that safety and security of these individuals are top of mind. And if
so you haven't asked the question?
If there was misconduct, those individuals would be held accountable.
Thank you, Senator Cruz.
All right. We just watched the whole thing, and I have to be honest. That was one of the most frustrating and revealing Senate exchanges I have seen in a long time. Frustrating because of the answers. Revealing because of what those answers tell us about how this administration operates. Let's break it down. On Executive Order 14006, I want to be fair here. On paper, reducing profit-driven incarceration sounds reasonable. Nobody wants a system where companies benefit from locking more people up. I get the intention, but good intentions do not excuse bad outcomes. The outcome here was the closure of the Willacy County Detention Facility in Raymondville, Texas. Think about what that means for real people. Inmates traveling hundreds of miles just for a court appearance. Families who can barely afford travel now facing journeys that are completely impractical. Defense attorneys struggling to reach their clients. And an entire local economy losing jobs overnight. Here is what Cruz nailed, though. This was not a complaint from political opponents. The defense bar opposed it. Federal public defenders opposed it. U.S. attorneys opposed it. Federal judges opposed it. These are people inside the system saying this policy is causing harm. And the administration did not care. When Cruz asked Peters directly whether the impact was positive or negative, she said she could not put it in either category. Those are the only two categories. If you cannot tell me whether policy is helping or hurting, you have no business running an agency that affects hundreds of thousands of lives. On the transgender housing policy, this is not about hating or dehumanizing anyone. This is about the safety of women who are incarcerated and have no say in who is placed in their facility. Cruz asked a straightforward question. How many biological males are currently housed in female federal prisons? The director did not know. She had to be pressed repeatedly before landing on fewer than 10. She had been asked this same question in writing a year earlier and never responded. She knew this question was coming and still walked in without the answer. That is either unpreparedness or it is deliberate. Neither is acceptable. Cruz then raised UK data showing around 60% of transgender prisoners in British prisons are sex offenders, compared to 18% of the general prison population. That is a significant gap, and it raises a responsible question. What do the American numbers look like? Peters said she was not familiar with the UK figures. Fine. But surely someone at the BOP has looked at the American equivalent, because if you are making housing decisions that place biological males with female inmates, you have a responsibility to understand the risk involved. The question that stopped me cold. Cruz asked how many female inmates have been sexually assaulted by biological males that BOP housed in female prisons. Peters said she would have to look into it. She has not asked that question. The director of the Bureau of Prisons has not examined how many women in her care have been sexually assaulted as a result of this housing policy. And yet she sat there and said safety and security is top of mind. Those two things cannot both be true. I am not saying every transgender inmate is a threat. That would be inaccurate and unfair. But risk assessment is a basic function of prison administration. You evaluate risk. You examine outcomes. You ask the hard questions, especially when the people who cannot protect themselves are depending on you to do exactly that. My overall take. Cruz walked in prepared. He had the facts, the statistics, and the record of unanswered questions. And he used all of it to expose something important. This administration has been running policy on ideology rather than evidence. When judges, attorneys, and prosecutors are all telling you a policy is harmful and you still refuse to call it negative, that is ideology overriding reality. When you cannot answer basic questions about safety outcomes in your own facilities, that is negligence dressed up as compassion. The people hurt by these policies are not abstractions. They are women in federal prisons with no voice. They are families in South Texas who lost jobs and access to their relatives. They are real people who deserve a government that actually examines the consequences of its decisions. Cruz did his job in that room. And whether you agree with him politically or not, accountability like that is necessary in a functioning democracy. That is my reaction. Do you think Peters was being deliberately evasive or just genuinely unprepared? Let me know below. Share this if you found it useful and subscribe if you're new here. I'll see you in the next one.